Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this class of fundamentals. Previously, we looked at a few aspects in fundamentals. We looked at what a fundamental is, and we ended on slide 27. So now we are going to look at the main parts of a computer. We had looked at most of the same types of computers. Those are the classifications. We looked at how we can classify them, and we explained all those aspects. We looked at the advantages and disadvantages. So at this particular time, we are going to continue with our main parts of a computer. When we talk of the parts of a computer, we mean actually the parts that are come together or that contributes to the process of or making it to be a computer. Because when we call it a computer, there are some components that come together to combine together, and then they make one unit or one system. So those are the parts that we're talking about. So some of them, mainly in these parts of the computer, we normally talk about the hardwares. And when we talk of hardwares, we say that hardwares are the physical parts of a computer. Are we together? So these are the physical parts of our computer. So the physical parts of a computer, some of them will have the keyboard. You can look at the keyboard because we have the internal and external physical hardwares all together. So this keyboard is one of the input devices that will actually assist us to enter the keys, or to enter the information, the data in the system. So we have like this monitor. Have the monitor. You can look at this monitor here. Is it okay? This one here. You can look at the computer itself is here. Is it okay? This one here. So we can have all those, and those are the ones that we are calling what? Hardwares. Then we have, those are outside, and then we have some internal hardwares, like for example hard disk is here. This is one of the hard disks where we store all our softwares. Any software that we have installed in the computer will always be in the hard disk. And then we have another thing that we're calling the CD-ROM or DVD room, which is used to read DVDs or CDs. It can read them, and again it can be able to write on them. Is it okay? So this is how it looks like all together. So this is the one. And then we have this is the computer itself. Is it okay? I'm talking about the parts of the computer because remember, we need to know some of them before proceed. However much we're not doing. So this is this part here, this one here, which you're seeing, this part, this metal here, is what I call the heat sink, this one here. And then this one on top, this one here, we are calling it a fan. Is it okay? And this guy is the one that mounts on the processor. Are we together? So this one here, I know most people normally have, they call the entire computer to be a CPU, but this is the CPU. Is it okay? Have you seen it? Is it okay, guys? This one here, this is the CPU. Look at it. This is the CPU, the central processing unit. It's the one that works like the brain of your computer. Anything that you're doing on the computer, the processor must be aware of it, because it is the one that interprets every instruction that is sent. Let it be output and let it be input. Are we together? So where is it found? Is mounted on the motherboard. This one here, this board which is blue-green, is the one that we are calling a motherboard. That green ones with a lot of some chips on them. Are you getting that? That one there, we call it a motherboard. So we install this guy here. Install it there. Is it okay? So when you put it there like this, the CPU, put it where? Put it there. So we install it there. Is it okay? And then we bring this one here, we put it on top. So this is what I call a CPU. or we call it a processor, microprocessor, or a central processing unit. And at this particular time, it's the one that now we are doing what? We are looking at. Now a hardware, particularly a central processing unit, in bracket CPU, in terms of computing power, we look at the computing power, how fast is this processor is. Are we together? When I say 1 plus 1 is 2, how long does it give me? How long does it take to give me the answer? Are we together? Let's sort of look at the processing power, the speed of the numbers of cycles that the processor does or that it makes. So the CPU is the most important elements of the computer system. It is the brain of the computer. This means that you need to understand the brains, how your brains works in your body. When you look at the reflex action in biology, that is non-voluntary actions. We know very well that most of you guys, you have studied biology in your O level, not A level, but O level, where you study about non-voluntary and voluntary actions. Are we together? So you find out that when you step on a hot iron, that is the leg that will step there, but there is the skin that will work as what? As a sensor, and that one will call it an effector. So the information will move from the effector to the brain through the spinal cord, either the spinal cord for interpretation or to the brain. So this is the same thing that happens for interpretation. After interpreting, the brain will send it back to the effector, and that's when now you realize that I have stepped on a hot iron or might be on a sharp object. Is it okay? So all those things can be done. When you look at them, as we're explaining, they take long time. But when you are doing it, it takes a think of an eye, and they think you will do that. Will happen. So this is the same thing that whenever we're requesting something from the computer, we do send instructions. The click you make is an instruction that you have sent. It cannot perform what you're intended to see before it is interpreted by the processor. Is it okay? So the processor must be in position to be there to interpret what you have sent. If the processor cannot do that, then you cannot get what you need. Is it okay? Sometimes you normally see the computer hanging. This means that the speed at which the processor makes or interprets the instructions is low. So you may insert in like 4 instructions or 5, so it means they will be put in a queue, and we shall be looking at the parts on how the processor can be able to handle all these. So a CPU, which we call the central processing unit, or a processor, or a microprocessor, is an electronic circuit. They use power. It's an electronic circuit, works on power, that can execute sequences of stored instructions called programs altogether. So we have programs that are stored on the hard disk. Is it okay? And all these programs will be picked. How? They will be picked by inserting or pressing a boot button on your computer, and then automatically the instruction will be sent, interpreted that they need what? The system unit, the system operating system, or either the system software. That is the operating system. Then where is it stored? It is stored on a hard disk. And as it loads with all the applications that are already installed there, or either any other software that is installed on your computer. Are we together? So as they move out, they come, and then you can be able to interact with them by the use of instructions, and the instructions will be moving through the operating system, because they're the one that understands the languages of the hardwares. Is it okay? So the CPU controls all the internal and external devices. So you can see we have looked at the physical, we have looked at the internal devices, parts of a computer, and again we have looked at the external devices. For example, I've talked of a keyboard, I've talked of a mouse, I've talked of a monitor, we have talked of the central system unit. Is it okay? And then those are external, and then the internal, we have talked about the hard disk. We have talked about the RAM. The RAM is here. This is what I call the RAM. Is it okay? We have talked about it. This is a RAM where all whatever is stored on the hard disk will be displayed, which works like a field in a real life. Is it okay? So whenever you're interacting with the computer or anything that you're doing, the clicks and what, they are always loaded in the RAM, which we call the random access memory. So we have looked at all those. So we are saying that the CPU will be responsible to control everything. That's why when you are requesting for the operating system from the hard disk and press a button of making it to start booting, that is booting, it is requesting, it is a series or a sequence that a machine takes when it is trying to pick the system units from the from the hard disk. And as it is doing that, it first checks of all the parts whether they are able to work or not. Previously, whenever you have no keyboard on your computer, the computer will not continue to boot. Is it okay? But nowadays, you are free. You can still move. A CPU. The program is represented by series of numbers that are kept in some kind of a computer memory. Are we together? So these programs, as they are appearing into the memory or the random access memory, they appear there in terms of numbers. When we talk of numbers, we are trying to mean that 0 and 1. Is it okay? These are numbers, these are digits that we use. So a computer understands digital language, and the digital language is only expressed by using a 0 or either a 1. Are we together? So a 0 will mean the means off and 1 will mean on. Is it okay? So these are the program, let me say the system unit or the system software will be represented by numbers of what? Zeros and 1 on the what? On the RAM. Is it okay? That's what they're trying to tell us. So we continue. The CPU processes which is obtained via the system bus from the main memory. So as it communicates on the motherboard, you'll see that there are some motherboard that are connected on it. Is it okay? You'll see that we have some. If this is our motherboard, look at it here. If this is our motherboard, this is the motherboard. Here we have the hard disk. Is it okay? This is hard disk. And then we have might be the RAM, the slots of the RAM here. This is the R, A, M, the RAM. Is it okay? Then we have buses. Buses can be lines on the motherboard, or they can be cables connected to other parts. Is it okay? This may be a cable, IDE cable. Are we together? Or might be SATA cable. It may be any cable. Are we together? Depending. So these ones here, they will have what are called data cables. Is it okay? And then we have, these are the ones that now we are calling the buses, where they will be able to carry, which you call control buses. The data cable are the ones that will be carrying the data, and then the bus, the control buses, they control the flow of the data as it is moving from the source to the destination. The source may be the hard disk, and the destination may be the RAM. As you are booting, pressing a button here, you'll press it. It will come and request the operating system from here, and where will it pass? Through the bus. And this bus here, they will be having it's a data bus or a control bus. Then it will move the information to comes here. Are we together? When it is going back again, maybe when you are shutting down your system, it will take the same position. So they can be either lines on the motherboard or real cables, which you call IDE cables or SATA cables. Are we together? When we talk of SATA cables, I mean actually this. I have one here that I can probably show you guys. So I have this, you can see this. This is a SATA cable. This one here, it's a SATA cable. Then the IDE cable, it can be probably this one here. IDE cable can be this. You see this? This one here. This one here. Are you getting that? Yeah. So those are the ones that we can call some of the. So the CPU processes which is obtained via the system bus from the main memory. So it passes through the buses, which we call the data cable or control buses. The results from the CPU are then sent back to the main memory via the system bus. So when the system receives, as I told you here, when the information is sent here, from as you have sent here, it will come here. It will come to the processor. The processor, let me say it is here. It will come here to the processor. When the processor interprets, after interpreting, and if the information is needed in the RAM and already the system has booted, isn't it? Then the information will be sent to the what? To the processor, to the RAM. I'm getting that to be displayed because that's what you needed. So it will come here, and that's why they are telling us that. The results from the CPU are then sent back. So after interpreting here, it comes back to this place. In addition, the computations of the CPU controls and coordinates the operations of the other major components. So the CPU will be in position to coordinate all the parts of the computer. Anything that you are doing here, that's why during the time of booting, it takes some time to check whether all the parts are attached. The CPU has two main components. They have two main components. Is it okay? One of them is what I call the control unit. What is the work of the control unit on this CPU? Is it okay? It controls the fetching of instructions from the main memory and the subsequent executions of these instructions altogether. So it will control the flow, the fetching. Fetching means getting the instructions that are being inserted in by a user through the hardware. Are you getting that? When you press a button on the keyboard and then you press it, it is the control unit that will carry that instructions to take it to the processor for interpretation. Is it okay? Among other tasks carried out are the control of inputs and outputs. As I said before, that the CPU will always control the inputs and outputs of what? Of data. Is it okay? And the passing of data to the arithmetic logic unit. Now, the processor is made in a different way, in such a way that if the data is for calculation, automatically there is a part that will be able to handle calculation data. That is information or data, isn't it? If my bit is just a message or something that deals with letters, then it will also handle that one. So that's why we see that we have arithmetic logic what? Unit. A, L, U. Are we together? So it will be done and it will handle it accordingly. Is it okay? So that's another one is the arithmetic logic unit, URU, carries out arithmetic operations on integers. So this one will deal only with calculations, whole numbers and real numbers with the decimal points or operands. So all these ones here can be done. Are we together? When we talk of operands and each and everything, so it may use a plus, it may use a plus, it may use a minus, it may use a multiplication, it may use a division. Is it okay? And it may use other operands that are discrete altogether, because these ones here can be performed by analog computers. Is it okay? But then what analog computers cannot do, it's less or equal to. I may have A is less or equal to 10. What does this mean? It means A has more than one answer. Is it okay? So the values of A are many. They can be less than 10. How many numbers are less than 10? We can talk of 0 is less than 10. We can talk of 1 is less than 10. We can talk of 2 is less than 3. So when you look at the members of A in this format, this is now the discrete data when we are dealing with the digital computers. Are we together? So when we are dealing with the digital computers, we expect this. So for it will deal with, as well it will deal with this direct data, and then it will still deal with this discrete information that your system have, or you can be able to insert in. It can also perform simple logical tasks for equality and greater than and less than between the operands. This is what I've just talked about. It is worth noting here that the only operations that the CPU can carry out are simple arithmetic operations. Are we together? So it can do calculations which are very simple, and then anytime you enter anything that you want to calculate, it will immediately give you the answer. The CPU can carry out these and comparisons between the results of the calculations and other values. So it can give you the comparisons. You can compare the two, and the selections of the next instructions for processing. Are we together? So here now, it means in this part now, inside here, we shall have what I'll call the register. We shall have what I'll call the register. Is it okay? We'll have a register. A register is a temporary memory on a CPU. Register. Is it okay? This register is a temporary memory. Is a temporary memory that will keep instructions that are coming in, which are immediate to be executed. Are we together? It's like a buffer. I believe some of you have heard of a buffer or a queue. Is it okay? So a queue is like when you guys, some of you have ever eaten in cafeteria, whereby you put the plates in a queue or a stack. then the last place that was washed first will be used last altogether. In other words, here there is first in, last out, or first in, first out altogether. That concept is in a logarithm. But here we use it because this computer is actually made, or process is made of algorithms altogether. So this is why they're telling you that this register is a temporary memory that will be able to keep the temporary instructions. When the instructions comes in, for example, if I'm sending in a request for Microsoft Word to open for me and I want to type my letter, I'll click on it. At the same time, I feel I want to listen to music, I'll click on the music. Are you getting that? So those are two instructions that I've sent at a go. And at the same time, I feel I want to connect to internet to send an email. Then I click the internet. I think that those are three of them. Now, all of these ones here are requested by one single person. And we know that our computer can do multitasking. Is it okay? So as we know that, this machine will be able to look at, as I have sent these things at a go, it will come and store them in the register. Then it will see who came in first. So who came in first will be served. As we are in the hospital, we are always in the queue, whereby who first come is the first person to be served. Who comes in first is the one out first. I think that. So that is the method that we use, which is a part of algorithm. Is it okay? Now also this one here does the same. In case out of all these messages, all of these instructions, if there is a message instruction which is like, for example, of updating the antivirus, updating the software, the operating system, is it okay? This one here, even though you have inserted in your three instructions, it may first stop this and then it picks these instructions of updating the antivirus, because the machine knows very well that the antivirus updates are very important, vital to the system than yours. Yours can wait, but for the antivirus cannot wait, or the operating system. So it will first answer the other one before yours. So that is a priority given to some instructions. As you can go to the hospital, all of you are put in the queue, then there comes a woman with a pregnancy woman, automatically will be given the first priority than you. If not, as you are there, you're in the first line, you're the first person in the line, and then you see a person who is in a bad critical condition comes in. When he comes in, obviously the doctor will have to first work on him and then leaves you, because you can wait for some minutes. I think that. So these are the 10 things that we're saying here. So these instructions will be picked depending on the time when they came in. As long as if there is no any other instruction that has a high priority than them. But if there is a one that has a high priority than them, then that one will be picked first before the other one, even though they were the ones to enter in. But if they are not there, then they will follow the order that they did what. So this is why we call them temporary memory, depending on what has been inserted. Shall we continue? So the CPU components. So you can look at the diagram of the CPU. So you're saying the central processing unit, it has a control unit, which we have so far seen that the control unit will be responsible for fetching our instructions. Arithmetic logic unit, this one will be only handling what? Calculations. Then you can see register, and they're telling us here on the side that the register is a temporary storage area inside the CPU. It is a high-speed memory which holds only data for immediate processing and results of this processing altogether. So this is what we've talked about. So the clock, obviously the clock will be working at the number, because we say that the speed of a processor depends on the number of cycles that the processor makes altogether. So that's what makes it to be. So we look at the processing power. So time have to be put under consideration. CPU manufacturers. As we have seen what a CPU does and why is it very important in our computer, because we've seen that there's nothing can be done on the computer without the awareness of a processor or a microprocessor or a CPU. Then we need to know who are the companies that comes up with these processors. One of them, they are basically two best known makers of CPU for consumers computers. That is, one of them is AMD and Intel altogether. There are two companies. AMD has its current lines of processors. These would include Theron, Phenom, Cepron, and Turon processors. So these are the current altogether. I believe you guys, some of you who have laptops or even computers, this desktop, if you check on its outside part on the system unit, on the system unit, you will see the processor that is inside. For example, if I check on mine here, I will see that mine is a Core i3. I think that's the one that I have here, Core i3. If I can be able to show it to you, you'll see it here. Are we together, guys? So it is there, and you look at it. It is that one. See, Core i3. This Core i3. It's the one that we're doing what? We're using in our computer. So every laptop has that, or every computer has that. It will actually tell you exactly which processor you have in your computer. Are we together? If it is AMD, you'll see it. If it is Intel, you'll see it. So Intel current lines of processors includes the Celeron, Pentiums, Core 2, Celeron 2, and then we have i3, i5, and i7 processors. The i3, i7, these are the current processors now. If you need the fastest machine, at least it should be in i. But if it's still in Celeron or might be in Core, in Pentium, then that machine is old. I'm not saying it cannot work, but can still work. But there are some other software that cannot be able to run on that machine. Are we together? Then the CPU manufacturers today, Intel is the best known manufacturer of a computer CPU. So the Intel is the most, because when you check across the market, you find out that Intel is actually common to everywhere. And now we need to know what would be the reason made Intel to remain in the market and AMD to get out of the market. You'll see that most of the CPU performs to the Vanaman's what architecture. I remember we looked at a design when we were looking at the way on how we classify computers. One of them, we had the design which we call the architecture, the way how the computer is arranged. So when we looked at the architecture, we looked at two ways on how a processor can be, the architecture can be done. And when we talk of the architecture, we actually refer to a processor itself, because the entire thing that is done or controlling everything is actually the processor. It's like the brain of your body. If it is removed from you, there is nothing you can think of, and there's nothing you can be able to do, because it's the brain that controls you. So the Vanaman's architecture was saying that for him, he will have one processor in a computer, and then it will have the fetching of instructions, that is a control unit, and then it will be able to have the register in case if the instructions are many, and then it will be able to to execute data, as well as arithmetic logic unit will always be done there, and then the memory will be there. That's one, and they are all integrated in one chip. Are we together? Whereas the multiprocessor, this one here had an idea that will come up with one processor. If one instruction is sent, each processor will be responsible for one, and another one will be responsible for one, meaning that you'll have a board, and that board you display, you display the processors in series. You assemble them in a series all together, or either in parallel. Any, then you can assemble them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When someone sends two instructions, one processor will handle one, and another one will handle another one. I'm getting that. So that's the architecture that the AMD took, whereas the Intel took that one of Vanaman. And that's why you see that the Vanaman's computer or architecture is much more common in what? In the community or in the world. I'm not saying that that process is not being used. It's used, but its demand is limited. Why? Because, for example, when I give an example of Bugema University, most of all, if Bugema has 1,000 computers in a place, there might be 1,999 or 995. All of them, they are Intel. Why? Because they are single users. Are we together? But they can do multitasking. The only computers that will have are those servers, and are the ones that can be able to use the multiprocessor. Are we together? Multiprocessor will only be accepted in the server. So that's why you see that the entire company they will have almost like 5 branches, but we are being served by one server. And that means that's where we shall use the what? The AMD processors. I'm getting that, because we shall have the series. And why do we have that? Because servers work 24/7. without doing one. But these single machine users, these machines will need only one, and then it can also still do my task. So we don't need filling it with a lot of of processors. Is it okay? So that's the reason why you see that the Intel becomes matched out as the best manufacturer of CPUs across the globe. Most CPUs conforms to the Vanneman's architecture, which says that the CPU must fetch, decode, execute, and write back the data in a fairly rapid succession. Memory. A memory is a circuitry that allows information to be stored and retrieved. So any memory must store data, and when data is required, must be retrieved. All together. We said we have a memory, and this memory, I showed it to you guys. We said this is our what? Our memory. This is the memory that we're talking about. This one here. Is it okay? This is the memory. All together. This one is the memory. So these are the chips that you're seeing on the memory. That's where the data is stored. And when we are handling the memory, we don't allow you to handle this memory like this. Is it okay? You handle it like this. Are we together? So that you should not touch the chips where the data is displayed. The moment you touch it like this, if the memory is working, then you will have interrupted or might be destroyed the data that is stored there. So that's why they don't need you to handle it like that, but you handle it the way I've shown it to you like this. I hope you're together, guys. So a memory, we are saying, it is a circuitry that allows information to be stored and retrieved. So if there is any memory that stores data, but when you need that data and cannot be retrieved, then that's not a memory. There are so many live examples that I can give, which you may call memories. Getting that? Yes. If you try to think around, there are many of them. For example, I can give a woman to be a memory, because a woman is given pregnancy by a man, isn't it? You keep there, you are storing there. After 9 months, she gives back what you stored in her. That means that's a memory that gives out when time comes for retrieving. Is it okay? So that's a memory. And there are some other memories that when something go, you cannot retrieve it. For example, death. When someone is buried, you don't expect to bring him back again. Are you getting that? So that one is not a memory, because it stores, and when it is time for retrieving, we don't retrieve anything. But look at a bin. When we are doing one, we are planting. We plant maize. When we plant maize, we expect it might be after 3 days or 4 days or a week, depending on its period of germination, it will come out from where you put it with more products or with what you expected. If you go to your garden and you find out that it has not germinated, then you say that means the memory where you put it, it is only storing but cannot retrieve back. It cannot give out back. So the examples are many. We have been living with them. Those are examples, obviously. However much they may not be directly, but they are the same. Because when I put a bean in the soil, I expect it to germinate. When it germinates, it means it has got out, because that's what I expected. I'm getting that, and I need it at a specific time. Is it okay? So it will come out at that particular time. Now we have, in common usage, it refers to a RAM. So this is a RAM that we have been talking about. So have a RAM is a random access memory, is a CROM for random access memory. RAM is a semiconductor-based memory that can be read and written by the microprocessor or other hardwares. So a memory will always be overwritten, either by the user of the machine, by the processor, or either by the hardwares. We have ROM and CROM for read only. This one here, you can pick data randomly and you can read at any single time t. But ROM, you only read but you don't modify, whereas in this one you can modify. So we are saying it refers to the semiconductor-based memory that contains instructions or data that can be read but not modified. Is it okay? So a ROM, this is where, because this ROM actually it normally confuses so many people, more especially when we're talking about a ROM and a RAM. What could be the difference? They are all the same, they are primary memories. But why do we call a ROM to be a primary memory? A ROM can still be as a permanent memory. Are you getting that? Because the ROM is actually the virtual memory that is created in between the hardware, the hard disk, and the RAM itself, the random access memory. Are you getting that? So that's why you see that in case if maybe power goes off, whatever is in the RAM will run quickly to the what? So this is a space provided by the hard disk to the RAM, which is virtual. Are you getting that? So it is also temporary because it's also primary because it's used at that particular time. The moment it goes back to the total storage, which is a hard disk or the permanent hard disk, which you call the secondary memory, then it will be permanently be what? Stored, and there is no reading, and there is no what? Even seeing it. Are you getting that? But when it is in the memory of ROM or a RAM, it can be seen, and you can be able to do what? To read. You can be able to even to edit if you're in a RAM, but if you're in a ROM, you'll only read, but you'll not edit, meaning that it is on now, it is running at that particular time, and the ROM is the one that keeps the configuration files, or that gives the instructions, where the instructions are coming from for you to be what? That are issued to make the RAM to continue executing or to continue working. So we have the CMOS battery. The CMOS battery is a complementary metal oxide semiconductor. This one is responsible for keeping what? Power. Because our machine, when we switch it off, we expect it to continue working. The processor continue working. Why? Because we need the date on, we need the calendar on, all the things we need them to be on, the clock, and even keeping our BIOS what? Safe. So that's why we keep this. If it takes more than a month, obviously the battery will get off, and when you put on your machine, it will give you a longer date. Storage measurements. As we have been looking at the measurement, at the memory, obviously this is the one that we use to store data. And when we store data, obviously we store them, and we have to store them, we have to measure them, to measure the data. The unit for measuring the capacity of the storage media includes binary digit. A binary digit is what I'll call the bit, or the smallest unit of storage memory in our devices or computer. Then the second to it is what I'll call the byte. Are we together? That one will be having 8 bits, whereas a binary or a bit will have only 2 digits. That's a 0 and 1. That's a bit. That's a 0 or 1. Are you getting that? Then when we talk of a byte, it is a series of 80 bits. A kilobytes, that's now more. The word kilo means 1,000. Are you getting that? So it will be giving us 124 bits. Is it okay? Megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, and exabytes. That's the increment, as you know, milligram, grams, kilograms. I think that as it increases like that in that order, so it goes like that. So a binary digit, this refers to the binary alphabet, which consists of 2 elements, namely 0 and 1, as I've said before. Bit is a short form of a binary digit. However, in processing and storage, it is the smallest unit a computer can handle, and it's represented physically by the elements such as a single plus sent in the circuit, a spot, and a magnetic or optical media capable of storing 1 or 0. Singly as it is, bit conveys a little meaningful information to the human being. I think that. So what are they telling us in this story? They are telling us that in case if you are writing anything on your board, or either it is a spot, just a dot like this that you put on your board, it will be represented by zeros and what? And 1. But this bit, it has a small meaning. It's actually meaningless to a human being. You cannot tell if I write 0 and 1, what is it? Are you getting that? Or you write 1 and 0, what is that? If I write 0 zeros, what is that? It gives a meaningless. It is meaningless. You can't get any sense from it. Are we together? So we have now to get a byte, in bracket a capital B. This is the string of 8 bits used to represent the character such as letters, numbers, punctuation marks, mathematical symbols, among others. Are we together? So in case if I'm writing a plus, I'm writing a minus, it will be represented by a series of 80 bits. Kilobytes, this refers to the 2 power 10, which is giving us 1024 bytes. The prefix kilo has the different meaning in the decimal numbering system, in which it presents the thousands, and to different between the two, the lowercase k is used for the decimal system meaning, and the uppercase k is for the computer meaning. Are we together? So here you need to be careful when we are talking about the kilobytes. When you're talking about the kilo in a computer, we actually mean, in a computer we mean 1024. This is equal to k. Is it okay? But in a decimal meaning, we mean that a kilo is a real kilo, which is 1,000, like that. Is it okay? This is different. There is a reason why they add 24, and it is not answered in this class. Is it okay? So what you have to know, that this is for decimal and this is for the computer. Okay. Megabytes, it refers to 2 power 10. That one you can calculate and then you get the numbers. That's billions of what. Gigabytes, it is 2 power 30. Terabytes, 2 power 40. Petabytes, 2 power 50. Exabyte is 2 power 60. So you can calculate. These are mathematical things and you can do them. I believe you have the calculators, you can do that. Now, and then we look at what I call peripherals. We look at peripherals. Here, when we talk about peripherals, there is always a challenge that comes in here again, where some people mix up a peripheral, calling it a hardware. They mix up a hardware and a peripheral. Is it okay? They are all hardwares, but they do different activities, and they are required at a different time. So that's why we are now going to see what could be the difference of a peripheral and a hardware. You will see the term peripheral refers to all hardware devices that are attached to your computer. I think that's where people get lost now. And now listen, and are controlled by your computer system. Is it okay? But now what makes the peripheral to be different, they help to improve the functionality. So that's what makes it to be different. But if you look at up there, they are all hardwares. And they are all controlled by the what? By the computer. But what do they do now to the computer? Because if I talk of the keyboard, a computer cannot work without a keyboard. If I talk of the monitor, a computer cannot work without a monitor. But it can work without a printer. Is it okay? So it means a printer, we won't say it is not a hardware, it is also hardware. But when is it required now? It's required when I need a hard copy. Altogether. So it will only add or improve to my what? My functionality of my computer. So I'll need a scanner when I need to scan. But doesn't mean that when a scanner is not there, I cannot use my machine. No, I'll continue using my machine all along without even a scanner, without even a printer. So those are peripheral devices. Are we together? So sometimes when we ask what could be the difference between a peripheral and a hardware, you need to be keen. This is the only thing that makes most of you to do what? To fail. But they are all hardwares and we know that. You will be correct, but we only look at the word. It helps to improve the functionalities of the computer only, or it adds on the functions of the computer. So peripheral can be classified into inputs and output. Altogether, there are so many. All the keyboards, monitors, they are there. They are peripherals. Indeed, we know that. Are getting that? Yes. So when some questions comes here, you need to be careful. Some can be both inputs and output devices, e.g. a modem. Why do we call a modem to be both input and output? It works, it moderates. This is like having an interpreter. You have someone who's speaking Spanish and another one speaking English, and none of them listens to each other. Is it okay? It means you are going to get someone else who can be able to understand the two languages, who understands English and Spanish, and put him in the middle. When he comes as a mediator, in other words, he has the signals to understand the English, and again he can be able to understand the what? The Spanish. What do you expect? It means this side, when the Englishman is talking, is inputting into this person. I think that, or into this device, if it is now the device which is like the modem now. And now he will again the same device which is you now, the mediator, you will the interpreter, or you'll be able to do what? To interpret, to explain to the Spanish who does not listen to English. So it means you can accept input, at the same time you can give output. So it can work both. Is it okay? These things are in real life. There is nothing much that you need to fear, but these are things that we need to do what? So that's what I call that a modem can have input and output. So what are the input devices? One of them will have the input devices. There are so many of them. The input devices is a piece of equipment that enables data to be entered into a computer. For example, we have a keyboard, we have a mouse, we have a joystick, we have graphics tables, we have digital cameras, we have scanners. These are all input devices. All these ones here are examples of input what? Input devices. All these all together. So these are the ones that we are talking about that are input. Then input is still input devices. then we have to look at one of the input. Input is any data or instructions entered into the computer memory. Using the keyboard, you may be using your laptop, so you can see the guy is actually typing on the keyboard, entering some data. Is it okay? He's entering some data on the keyboard. Are we together? So that is it. Then input devices give commands. Now one, we have the keyboard. The keyboard looks like this. And this one here, you can enter the commands using the keyboard. You can enter commands using the pen. You know these pens that we used to use, which you call stylus, isn't it? These ones that we used to use pen. And then you can use the mouse to enter on the left hand click, left click and right click, isn't it? We shall look at that. Then input devices are two types of hardware that enables you to get programs, data commands, and response into the computer memory. And response into the computer what? Memory. So the input devices will always be entered. And they are entered using different devices. Can be a keyboard, can be a mouse, can be a pen, or nowadays it can be your fingers, touch screen, isn't it? You can still enter data. So how does the keyboard looks like? The keyboard looks like this. You can see the keyboard. So this keyboard has different things that you need to note, you guys. One, we have the stylus indicators. When we talk of the stylus indicators, these are the colors, the code, the color, the lights that are lighted here, that are here. You can see them on this side. Is it okay? These ones here. I think them, these colors. These ones here. Those are lights. So those are the light indicators. Are we together? Then we talk of the numerical lock. The numerical lock here, we are meaning this short part of it. You see, this is the keyboard. You see this keyboard here? Is it okay? So there's this part here. This part. This part here. This part here is locked by default. So the key lock is this button. This button here. This one here is the key lock. This. Is it okay? That one is key lock. It will be written on numerical lock. It will be written on numerical what? Numerical lock. So when you see that button, you'll know that this is a what? A numerical lock. Are we together? So that is the one. So in case some of you want to use these keys here, these numericals, but they don't work because they are locked by default by this. If this one is on, you'll see the light here, lighting. If it is not lighting, it means this one is what? Is locked altogether. So if you wanted to start using it, press this one here. It will make this light to do what? To start what? To open. To start to open, isn't it? It will be. You'll see the light there. When you see it there, then it means that those numericals are unlocked. Are we together, guys? Then I can still look at, we have the function keys. Function keys are not any other keys that we're talking about. Here the keys, they are functional keys. When we talk of a functional key, we are actually meaning these keys. These ones here, they are functional keys. Where you're seeing F, F1, F2, F3, F9, those are the ones that we're calling functional keys, isn't it? They are functional. Those functional keys, you need to be careful, more especially when you're using other keyboards. There is another keyboard that uses a USB and it can use as a PS2. Are we together? That keyboard for it, the F, it's F, they are locked by default. Unlike this one here, for them they are turned on by default, but the other one they are locked by default. So if you're using that key type of a keyboard, then you need to be careful. Are we together? I think I can show it to you because you might ask me. So now the keyboard I'm talking about is this keyboard. You see this keyboard, its way, it's made differently. Is it okay? You can see the way how it is made. It's different from the one that I've just shown you. So for them, they are locked by default, and the button that locks them is this button here. This button here. This button is the one that locks the F. So you have to press it. When you press it, you see the light below it here. The light will light. When this light lights, then it means that the Fs are on now. They are unlocked because they are locked by default. So some of you, since you are used with these ones here which are not locked, so you think that also by the time you start using that one there, you just press F and then you expect it to work. Are we together? It won't work because it is turned off by default, or it is locked by default. So this is the key that I'm talking about, which you call ergonomic what? Ergonomic keyboard. No, we call it extended keyboard. Is it okay? This is an extended what? Keyboard. This is the one that we call ergonomic keyboard. We're going to look at the types of the keyboards, so don't worry. Okay, so you can see that on the keyboard we have quaternary functions. These quaternary are the keys in the middle here. The keys in the middle here. Are you seeing that? These keys in the middle. The keys here. These ones here. Like this. Is it okay? Those are the ones that we're calling quaternary. Then we have the escape button. That one, I believe you guys, you know that. So I may not look at that. Tab, it will assist you to move to next, to move the cursor to the next field. Are you getting that? It can assist you, might be, to even be able to move to another part altogether. So that is it. Caps lock. These are capital letters. When you put on this button, it is a caps lock. In other words, capital letters. When you put on it, the second light here, it will start lighting. The one this side will start doing what? Lighting. So when it starts lighting, then it means the caps lock are on, and whatever you're going to type will be in capital letters. We have alternative and control. Alternative, these are the buttons here that are here. There is a control that we shall also be using. They are also buttons. So most of these things, arrow keys, are here. Makes you to navigate through the what? Through the document. So this is the way, short and brief. This is how the keyboard is made up of, and how do you start using that? I believe if we are to do some practicals, and then we shall be able to use most of these these parts. But since we are on a remote, we are on what? On a remote. We are just teaching by videos and might be on streaming. It may be hard probably to do these things practical. But I think you are seeing them, so you can use just your own knowledge and then be able to continue. So the keyboard allows the computer's user to enter words, numbers, punctuation symbols, and special functions, commands into the computer memory. As we said before, that input devices does this, isn't it so? So that's not something new. So types of keyboard. We have enhanced or extended keyboard. This is the one that I've just showed you. You can see how big it is, and it is also resembling the other one. So we call it enhanced or extended keyboard. Then we have ergonomic keyboard. So this one here is an ergonomic what? Keyboard, which is this one here now, which is this altogether. They are ergonomic keyboard. So enhanced or extended keyboard typically has 101 keys laid out in a quaternary fashion, connected to a computer by a serial cable altogether with a serial cable. So as I told you that this one here nowadays it can use a PS2 cable, or it can use a USB cable. Like what I have here, actually for it is working. This keyboard is working. It's not old as such. It uses a USB. Is it okay? So you can see that it uses what? A USB. Altogether it is a USB. And there are others which uses a PS2. A PS2, it's like a circle like this. It's like that. Are you getting that? Yes, and with some pins inside it. Are we together? That is a PS2 type of keyboard. We shall also look at them down here. Now we have what I call cordless keyboards. Uses infrared or radio wave signals. Are we together? These are the ones that are using their wireless. They are using wireless, but they use infrared. Remember, infrared does not penetrate through a what? Through a wall. They must be near each other. Are getting near the source. Is it okay? So it's like having this wireless mouse. Some of you guys, I know you are using them. So this is what I would call the cordless keyboard. They uses infrared or radio wave signals. They are not strong enough. They are very weak. They need to be. They don't penetrate through any surface. They have to be near the device. Are we together? Then we have agronomic keyboard designed to help prevent accumulative trauma disorders, in bracket CDT, or a damage to nerve tissues in the rust and hand due to the repeated motions. So in this agronomic keyboard, as I've told you, it is this one here. Previously, most of the keyboards, whenever you use it and continue using it from the morning up to evening, it will generate some sparks. Are you getting that? So when you continue over touching it, it may end up shocking you. Are you getting that? Some people have ever been shocked with the keyboard. It's because it had the accumulative trauma disorder to prevent the damages to the human being. Are you getting that? So this one here now, it has that. So this keyboard, even though you use it 100 times in a day, it cannot complain and it cannot give you anything of problem. So now we have the mouse. A mouse, we know that a mouse is one of the devices that can be able to assist us and to do most of the things. Now, for example, we have the mouse here. This is our mouse. This is the mouse that we're using. Is it okay? And now this mouse has two parts. It has the right part, and then it has the right part and has the left part. This one here is the left part, and this one here is the right part. Is it okay? No. I think I'm interchanging them. This is the right part and this is the left part. The left part is what we call sometimes normal part. Are you getting that? When we are clicking, we just click. That click just gives us exactly what you expect. The moment you click like this, it gives you what you need. But right click will always give you options. Is it okay? So a mouse as a device, it is divided into two parts. So we have left click and right click. So left click is actually much more used than a right click. Why? Because most of the time we need to click to get what we expect. Whereas right click will always be assisting us to get a number of options, and then we pick out of the options depending on what we need. So it gives options. It cannot immediately perform what you need. Is it okay? So it is rarely used. Are we together? But it is also good. And then we have a role here. When you want to navigate or to move through the document, you can scroll up and down, up and down. That's navigating, perusing through the document. You can go up and down. So you can use this. Is it okay? So that is our mouse. And then you're saying the mouse is the most widely used pointing device. A mouse is palm sized. It can fit into your mouth, into your palm. This is my palm, so it can fit there. Is it okay? Then you have, as the mouse is moved, its movements are mirrored by on the screen pointer. So as you move like this, the screen has two mirrors. It will be mirrored. In other words, to be reflected on the what. So it is using that. The beam of light. I'll give a simple example whereby you guys, most of you have ever been to a salon, whereby you have two mirrors in front of you, one in front of you and another one behind of you. So the image formed by the one in front, it is reflected behind to the other one. The light goes and falls on the other one, and then you can be able to see at the back of yourself, and then it comes back at this side again. Are you getting that? So that's the same technology that you use it for this. So the mouse pad cleans the flat surface for the mouse movements. So types of the mouse, we have a wheel mouse, and then we have the cordless mouse. A wheel mouse contains the rotating wheel used to scroll vertically within the text documents or connects to a PS2 port or a USB port. So a wheel mouse has a wheel inside it. Altogether, these are previous ones. I used them, but nowadays I know there may be IT support down there. It here down, you put it inside. And then you'll be able to do what? To remove it in case if it is dirty, and then you can be able to remove it after removing it, and then you can be able to remove to clean it after cleaning, and then you put the bag, and then it will start working properly. I'm getting that. But this one here, it's using a cordless, that is a light. It uses infrared signals to connect to the what? To the computer. IRDA port. It must be within the site of the receiving port. Are you getting that? So this one must be connected to the what? To the port. That's a cordless mouse. Then PS2 ports, we have two PS2 ports, as you can see them here. Are we together? We have the one that is in green is a mouse, and the one that is in blue is what? Is in purple is the keyboard. So these are PS2 ports, and that's how they look like. How a mouse works. A mouse button enables the user to initiate actions. Click in bracket left, right, or double clicking allows the users to select an item on the screen or open a program or a dialog box. I believe you guys have this, because I know you have your phones. You can be able to click. You can be able to as you know that clicking can you can use your finger. I getting that to click. You can use a pen to click. You can use a mouse to click. I getting that. Either left or right, depending on whatever you want, or double click. That's double click is clicking in succession. Then click and drag. This is clicking and you hold it down and then you pull it all together. Holding down the left mouse button and moving the mouse enables the user to move an object on a screen. Are you getting that? That's like dragging. You move it from the other side to this side. Are we together? If I can be able to show it, it can be like having this thing here and then you drag it like this. Is it okay? So that is the drag. Then other types of pointing devices, you have a trackball, you have a pointing stick, you have a touch screen, you have a joystick, you have pen, you have a touchpad. Are we together? So all these are pointing devices that you guys need to have. So the image processing systems, the scanner, images processing systems are used in businesses, industries, and science to input data without manually keying it in. So in case if might be you have got your document and you want that document to give the exactly information that is there without might be copying it or doing what, it is just scanning the same information and automatically it will be taken the way it is. Are you getting that? So that's a scanner. It scans exactly. It picks using the technology called #2. Are we together? That is the mechanism that is there. Are we together? Then image processing system scanners, you can see that it uses a magnetic ink characters regeneration, MICR. A computer can read numbers and letters printed with ink containing the magnetic materials. MICR is used by banks to process checks. The account details at the bottom of the check can be accurately read in this manner since the MIC is not affected by that. Are you getting that? So this type of technology of scanning is actually used in the bank for scanning, more especially the signatures of the managers. Are we together? Because all the time we will not be signing the checks, but the thing will be there, and then they'll just get a check, and that's why you see that even you, when you have a big company, you can go to the bank and they give you a book of checkbook, isn't it? Then when you want to write for someone a check, then you write it because it is approved by the bank, by the manager of the bank. And the signature of the bank is already there. So it's you to write your names to the person that you want to give a check, and you put there the details, and obviously you plug it out into the book, and then you give it to the owner, and it takes to the bank. Since it has the details, so these things can be read there automatically and then be read. And what knowledge do they use? Is optical marker reader, OMR, scanning devices that senses the magnetized marks from H2, from #2 pieces. Pencils. Are you getting that? So these things are written in pencils, and then it will read all of them like that. So have alternative input devices. We have backorder, reader, and then we have microphone speech recognition, isn't it? Recognition. So you'll see that we have the backorder readers, and then these ones here, the barcode, I hope you know that, you know it. The microphone, you know it. Some of you have used it. It's even here in the diagram. You can see how together. So it receives your sound and then it boosts them so that they can be able to be heard wherever they are. I think for today we can be able to end here. Otherwise, I thank you for your listening, and then may the good Lord bless you for that.